Welcome back to AI War 2 Beginner Walkthrough. A few things I want to get into before we head into progressing the game. One is that they're putting together quite a large patch. I think they're avoiding doing it over the weekend so that they don't repeat what happened on launch weekend. But it's going to be the biggest patch post-launch. Going to be a whole bunch of stuff on that. So as soon as that hits, I'm going to put together a special video to highlight some of those changes. Also, if you're wondering about sort of the limited resistance and the drudgery of going through the map, there are a lot more types of things the AI is permitted to do on the higher difficulties that it just can't do on level 4. There's a lot of buildings it doesn't have access to. It gets more high-level planets, and that's just the start of it, along with the increased economy, more ships, all of that. Developer Chris Park did a stream, and I'm going to have the link to that in the description. I recommend checking that out from about the 15-minute mark on to about 20-25-minute mark. He had a level 9 AI. He had level 9 Marauders, level 9 Nanocost. And what you'll notice is he literally was getting himself beat up just trying to get out of his own home system. As he tried to get out, the Hunter fleet and Warden fleet boxed him in, and the Marauders were coming in and mixing things up. They didn't even get to the Nanocost yet. But it's sort of a good picture of, while Chris would be the first to say he's not the strongest player at his own game, he obviously spends a lot more time working on the development side than the playing side, but just sort of the level of interaction and the level of resistance that you can get if you crank the thing up. So if you're doubting the capability of the game to flip out and really bring the pain to the player, take a look at that. It might be educational. Also interesting is that there was a player by the name of Aurelius who submitted a very AI War specific bug last Monday. It's been almost a week actually since he did this. He did it in less than a week, just barely, of the game being released. And what he did is he defeated it on level 10. Favorable conditions for his starting fleet. He only had one AI. He didn't have any other factions. So we didn't throw the kitchen sink at this thing, but still, very impressive. And naturally, in the next patch, there's going to be some changes done to address what he was able to do. The process with AI War, people will find ways to break the very highest difficulty, and then the developers will find ways to unbreak it. And around the circle goes. If you're out there and you're new to the game and you don't know what to do in a particular situation, feel free to throw out questions like those. Those are great for me to continue to fill in holes. I had one person mention that for them, sort of analysis paralysis sets in when they got their homeworld, they got the buffer zone around it, and then they don't know what to do. There's too many options. It's hard to have a criteria to decide. And my suggestion in that case is just take your first couple games as an experiment. Just do something. Even if you know it's wrong, like, do something, test different things, see what the effects are. There's only so much I can show in one walkthrough. And also, you'll learn from what the response is. Even if it's like, okay, I totally don't ever want to do this. Well, that still limits it. Then you've got, a smaller section of things to do. And you'll gradually whittle it down and develop your own style of playing that will at least be somewhat reasonable, and learn what you need to do to be successful. And then there is the matter of Deepstriking, returning to our present situation. Now, in the original game, in Classic, there was a very specific limit on how far you could deep strike. Once you got so many jumps or hops away from your home territory, it would be considered deep striking, and your transports would take attrition damage going through each additional wormhole. So after a few of them, they would blow up, and you'd only have the ships that were inside them left. And you could still keep going with those, but it would actually generate threat as you went further. The way deep striking works here, and when you're going to define deep striking, that's just attacking anything that's not adjacent to your system. For example, hitting Mandress would not be considered deep striking. Hitting Dangara would be. In AI War 2, it's basically limited to how far can you get through the enemy resistance. Because while your fleet flagships are essentially indestructible, if they get crippled, then your fleet isn't going to be able to do a whole lot until you limp them back and get them repaired. So there's a It's not a hard-coded limit, it's a practical limit. In the situation we are in at the moment, we've essentially eliminated the tech vaults, except for the one that's quite a ways away. There's really nothing big for us to do over here. We could hack a couple of these ARSs, but that's about it. We clearly need to continue improving our ability to project offensive firepower, and you know, you could try maybe a support fleet here, whittle this down. We could do, you know, repeated runs in there to knock down the system, eventually take those over. But sort of the path of least resistance, and it will also allow for demonstrating some things, would definitely be this over here. And if this were a more serious high-level game, I would probably just, the planets are weak enough, I'd probably just try to plow through and deep strike all the way over here to Ix, and I actually might even go to Nadine first. But in this particular case, I'm going to take an intermediate route, because I don't think Prism would be too hard to defend, and it's the kind of thing where, you know, you're not really trying to stretch yourself too thin. So we're going to go after Prism. And on the other side of things, I'd like to take our particular fleet here and hack these ARSs on the way out, but it's not going to let us. We're going to see real quick why that is. And I'm actually going to need to reroute another fleet up there to take care of all that business. And if we look at the ships that we have 6 in Apathy, but only 4 in Denent, Hildus, and Holer. So effectively, we could get 6 more ship lines within the fleets that we already have. If we take a look at these, you can see Warbird Frigate in yellow, that's probably going to be Mark II. Pike Corvette is blue there, and that's Mark III. So it lets you know what mark that ship would be based on your current upgrades, which is a nice little color-coded thing. So what I'm going to do right now is load these up. I'm going to send a couple of these fleets off to do various things.
Taking fire in enemy territory. Under attack on border world.
And you can go in here. There's no good reason not to just go and load those as well. And then we'll send you up here. Okay, so if we head into Gunth, and let's see where everything is at. Yeah, the ships are floating through, doing various things. They're journeying for varying reasons. These are just Sentinels. They're not part of one of the other subfleets. And let's say we tried to hack. Grant ship line. Cannot currently hack because can't grant more than 6 ship lines. The flagship Strike Apathy has 6. The hack grants ships to the closest flagship. So this ship is useless to us for hacking. Therefore, we're going to move it on here and join the rest of the fleet that I want to have attack Prism. And then meanwhile, these over here can hack away to their heart's content. And let's just go ahead and escape to the perimeter of the system, per usual. Got the support fleet in there as well. And then we will unload.
On border world. Taking fire on enemy world.
And grant the ship line. And so that'll all work, and then we'll move elsewhere. And these have arrived now. So we're going to move in here and take over Prism.
Hacking is finished.
You see they've got some damage, but they're looking okay. Of course, they can repair to their heart's content once we get everything under control in here. Okay, let's see. There's not much. Oh my. There it is. The nano-cost suppression field emitter. And let's pause and see what they have to say about this. Seems to be emitting an extraordinarily powerful suppression field as if it were keeping something very dangerous from awakening. Note, it's good to read the tooltips. Don't be like the person who blew this up, not really caring about what it was, and unleashed the nano-cost. Destroying it might have unexpected consequences, but it would make for fascinating study. Your chief science officer notes that opening it may be humanity-ending. One of your military advisors believes there's a chance humanity could hold this new threat at bay while it ravages the AI. Either way, things are likely to be lively, and if you kill it, you get the 5,000 science. I don't know. What do you think? Based on that description, should we kill it? Answer, no. Okay. So, and yeah, Tesla Guardian, these are Mark III. There isn't that many of them, although they probably have more stealth guard posts around. These stealth ones only show up when you get within a certain distance of them. And so they're basically super annoying in my opinion. I think what we want to do is just basically not get too fancy here. Just unload and go after everything. Select all 3 fleets. Attack. And let's, yeah, that stealth guard post is down. The nice thing about them is they're not that strong. They're just kind of annoying. You can see the laser pulse there. And we'll just move off this way. And we'll flip back to the other planet where I think our hack has been done for a bit now. There is no more ARS there. So I'm going to let the attack fleet and Prism just sort of be and move all of these ships, and that was the wrong thing. I'm still forgetting to load up every once in a while, so let's just hang out in here for a bit. We'll load up. And now we will head off.
No problems on this end.
Left a few drones out, but not a severe amount. Let them do whatever they want. They've got a whole bunch of stuff floating around in there.
Under attack on enemy world.
Okay. There's nothing nearby here. Unload. And hack again.
Our hackers are starting.
And then we can head back here. And we're just going to go after this command station now. I don't see any issues with this. We're going to plow through this. We're going to get set up in here. And we're going to have additional energy from this system. Plus, we will be able to defend much better. And the issue with the energy, of course,
Hacking job complete.
is just the fact that... Oh, there's another guard post. Let's go over there. But it's just the fact that we're not paying for any new ships that we're going to acquire in here. All we need to do is set up a command station and defenses. And once we do that, everything is going to be fine.
Attention. These collisions will be recorded for
Taking damage
science.
on border world.
So we can brush your face.
There's another wave against Rijbergen, and this is also sort of an instructive thing. I'm going to pause again here for a moment. If we take a look, we're getting all of our waves are hitting Rijbergen and Shinda. I think we've seen some in Thaf in the past, yeah, maybe here, but none of them are hitting Alpha. And that's not by accident. Alpha has much stronger defenses, and there's actually a new mechanic in place to prevent the sort of over-turtling strategy that people like Kahuna were so proficient at in Classic. It was basically the best way to play, to just create fortress worlds, have a limited offensive fleet, and that way you could automatically stop any AI waves to come. Well, here's what happens in AI War 2 if you do that. If a planet has too much defenses, the AI simply won't send a wave at it. So even with the waves, it's slightly more intelligent than it used to. Now you've noticed that most of our waves we have been able to repel. There is a gap, like a sweet spot, where you can defend what they send at you. You're still weak enough that they'll actually send the attack. Now, if all of our systems were so strong that the AI didn't think it had any chance of doing any damage, then it would simply save up that amount and make the waves bigger and bigger until they attack. So it doesn't do you any good to have overprotection. And in fact, if I was being super smart at the moment, I would simply take down some of the stuff in Alpha until it started getting the occasional attack, because those extra defenses are simply burning energy and not accomplishing anything. And in fact, it gets even worse than that. that. There was a new player who had AI progress right about where ours is, and had gone almost 2.5 hours, and that's about 45 minutes further than we're at right now. And they were getting very small waves like we are, actually a little bit smaller than the ones we're getting. And then all of a sudden they escalated rapidly and they got wiped out. They had waves going up to well over 100 strength. And the reason that happened is that for any given AI progress level, the Hunter fleet has a limit. So the Hunter fleet's building up, and then you're building up more threat gradually, and the threat joins the Hunter fleet, and it reaches that limit. And when it reaches that limit, the Hunter fleet simply sends the excess out into the wave budget. And so it just gets added to the waves attacking your planet. So you've really got to be careful about how big those things are. If we look at this, the visible Hunter strength to us is 2. So there's not a whole lot of it. Total threat on all explored or watched planets is 15, and in the galaxy is 34. So actually, slightly the majority of the threat is actually up here in all of this area that we haven't even explored yet. So we don't have that kind of a problem now, but it's very important to keep an eye on all that, because eventually the threat will build up to the point where you're going to have to do something about it one way or the other, because it's going to come after you if you don't. Okay, so we've got something new here. We've got an alarm post, and this will call for aid. All guarding units within one wormhole hop will become threat and possibly join the Hunter fleet if the local AI strength is less than 0.5 times that enemies on this planet. AI progress will rise by 5 if it dies. So if you attack this planet, you've got to be very careful not to do it with overwhelming force, or you're going to create a bunch more threat that's going to harm you down the line. That's essentially what that does. What is this? Artillery Golem. Okay. Zenith Mass Driver, 200,000 damage, infinite range. And if the target has a mass of at least 5, then it does 20% more damage. Fragile Flagship that can annihilate single targets at infinite range. And look at that, 1 hull and 0 shields. So basically, you need to make sure nobody hits this. But if they don't, it's got an immensely powerful weapon, which is, of course, meant to be a bombardment type of thing. It costs 2 million metal. AI progress will increase by 20 simply for having it. And it is an officer fleet, our first officer fleet that we've run into, Freya Band. It will come with some vanguards, some iBots, some corvettes, and a siege frigate. Total strength 11 to start off with this particular fleet. So golems are one of the types of super weapons that you can acquire. And the first true super weapon that we have uncovered, I would say, in the game. Up here we've got, okay, another Zenith power generator. We may be interested in looking at that, particularly as we would want to push out in this general direction. Another outguard beacon, and you know what, let's just go ahead and hack those outguard beacons. We'll access that one. And let's see, I think there's another one over here. I don't think we got the one in Baytoon. So go and grab that. We just want to see what all of those are, what all the different groups are that we can mess around with. And there's another fleet over here. This is just basically your standard edition, but it's got some nice, this is another one of those matching up your tech with the acquiring fleets deals, because you can see that like 3 of those things are Mark III, the 4th one is Mark IV, the Tritium sniper frigates, and then the parasites are Mark II, and we've seen how good the parasites are. So compared to some of the other fleets that are out there, this would actually be a particularly good one for us to grab. It would also give us a very defensible system that's on the other side of the super terminal one. So there's lots of reasons for us to like this if, when we're done with our current initiative, we are not happy with the current state of our military. But that's the one we got. We've got more distance to cover out this way. It fills in one of the gaps, and a very nice gap it is indeed. And not a whole lot up in here. It's just like empty space so far, but there could be more out in that direction. So, back into Prism, where it's time for us to get set up. So Prism is prepared, and I built all of my turrets and everything in this general area. And from here, if we look at our ranges, you can see we can just sort of cover everything. And if you can ever set up a cone like this, this is generally a more advanced strategy similar to what you would have used in the first game. But so where everything comes into the same area and all of the turrets, as many as possible, can cover more territory, obviously that's going to be better. I did not build the beam cannon, and I went with the plasma turret over that simply because it's Mark III. Cost of energy here, and the fact of the matter is I may even want to take these down on some of the planets eventually. You can see after we've built everything, including the new ships we just hacked for, our energy is still not looking too great at 176k, and we're about to go acquire some more ships. Now there's another concept that I wanted to talk a bit about related to what we mentioned earlier, a couple more actually. The whole routing your transports through enemy planets deep striking idea, you can make that easier by using sort of a mid-level idea known as neutering. And that's also used if you're bordering a particularly strong planet. For example, over here in Alpha, we would be well served to go in and neuter Lurdorf. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means knocking out all of their guard posts and other defensive structures. So it basically just leaves the command station alone, and they don't get all of as many extra reinforcements because the guard posts each get reinforcements. So they don't get as many of those extra reinforcements, which means more reinforcements go to lower marked planets, which is exactly what you want. So that can keep too much strength from building up around you. And if you have to get through a particularly tough path and your transports are having a hard time, it might be worth just knocking out some defensive structures in a system like Altus if it was causing us too much pain, and just so that there's not as much stuff shooting at you as you go through. So you're not attacking it to actually eliminate it. You're not going to take over the system. You're just clearing a path, as it were. Now the other thing is relating to what we were mentioning about some systems not getting attacked by the AI. And eventually, if you do a bunch of gate raiding, you're going to limit the amount of systems that would be getting waves so that it's fewer of them to manage, and you can tweak the defenses you want to the right level where they're getting attacks, but they're plenty strong to repel them. And any system that you are intentionally having waves hit, you've gate raided other areas so that like it wouldn't hit a couple of these planets over here, but it would hit Alpha, for example. Those are known as whipping boys, which is kind of a interesting historical reference point, but of course the general idea is those are the planets that are going to take the punishment when the AI gets ticked off. But you need to remember that that only works against waves. Other forms of AI attacks don't care about the warp gates, so there's a limit to how much you want to rely on that. So lots of new concepts today. We've got the alarm posts, we've got the golem, we've got all of those fun things. Any questions about any of that? Feel free to let me know. Otherwise, we're going to try to proceed further next time and set up our first proper choke point over by Ixen Nadine. Till then, thanks for watching. AI War 2 Beginner Walkthrough will continue.